Welcome back to the channel and the Morocco video series. Let's get into it. A little bit of background on the route and journey. So we started in Portsmouth, caught a ferry across to Santander with our bikes. From there we headed on our bikes, rode our bikes to past Burgos, and then made our way slowly towards Madrid and went on the outskirts of Madrid itself, but bypassed Madrid, making our way towards Albox, where we stopped for the night, had a sleepover there in a beautiful little town in the mountains, and then the next morning woke up and went down to Almeria to catch our ferry. That is the final leg of ferries across the Mediterranean Sea, where we made our way down towards Melilla and Nador. So Melilla is the Spanish port, and Nador was actually where we landed, which is the Moroccan-owned port. So we landed in Nador itself, and from there the journey started.
Yeah, can you get my helmet off, please?
Within the first 5 minutes, one of us had managed to lose our boarding passes, which led to much hilarity and laughing before we even got on the ferry itself.
How's it going? You made it. I think we need to keep going. See you on board.
Just as we were about to board the vessel, we bumped into our buddy who was coming in a 4x4 on the trip. He hadn't got very far, and as you could see from the video clip there, he was getting the full inspection from customs, and they had his air filter out and everything. I decided not to stick around. I decided to move on swiftly and get on with getting on board. But we did laugh about it. We had 1,000 kilometers to cover across Spain this day, and along the way one of the lads decided to leave his heated handguards on and ran his battery flat, so we had to do a bump start outside the restaurant. It's amazing how friendly and kind some of the Spanish people were. There's a random guy just came out the shop, latched onto the back of my mate's bike here and gave a little bit of a push to get it bump started. Look at that, fantastic. You gotta love it. People are so friendly when you're out traveling and adventuring the world. So thank you, dude, you're a legend. And on we went.
Flat battery. Bloody heated grips. Bit of a fish stop. You can see the boys having a leak. Norfolk Big Bike Adventures on tour. We're bashing out the miles, or the kilometres, across Spain. We got 436 kilometres to go out of a 1,000 kilometre trip. So we're going to be arriving quite late at night. Hop us 8, most probably 9 o'clock, I reckon. Another 4 hours of riding to go. But first proper day's riding across Spain. Fuck yeah.
We got to Albox, had to change our tyres before we got on the ferry, saw a beautiful sunrise in the morning, hosted by Mark's lovely sister, and on we went towards the ferry the next day.
Thank you. No problem. Follow him. There's one more.
I'd actually got challenged at the immigration border exiting Spain, heading into Morocco. They wanted to know if I had a residence permit for Morocco, which is obviously not required, being on a British passport. But I had to call in the senior at the immigration post, and the senior person sorted it out and just clarified everything. So off I went, got on the ferry, and problem solved. You may also notice I'm on comms a lot of the journey with my mate Mark, and that makes it really handy when getting on ferries, going into towns, organising lunches, fuel, and having a little conversation. So we weren't talking all the time whilst we're on the trails, but due to the high speeds and wind noise and whatever, it's not perfect. But it was quite handy for situations like this when we were getting on and off things, and just that little bit of communication amongst us and making it easy certainly was a massive benefit. On the ferry leaving mainland Spain, heading to Nador in Morocco. Sea is very flat compared to what we had leaving the UK. It was pouring with rain, miserable high seas, and here we are in Spain in glorious sunshine, flat seas at the moment, and just cruising along. Check this, cool ferry. We've been through the police checks and immigration, and we've done customs, got the customs approval for the bikes, so yeah, off we go. North Africa, here we go. This was time to disembark. We had a 12 o'clock midday ferry from Almeria, and we arrived roughly about 7 p.m. in Nador, so it was starting to get dark. Here we're just disembarking. We've been given the green light to get on our bikes. We've docked into port, and now it was a matter of just exiting the port, clearing the final customs checks as we left the port, which obviously you can't film, but they asked us questions like, are you carrying a firearm, and do you have a drone? Drones are not allowed unless you have a permission from the Civil Aviation Department in Morocco, so don't take your drones to Morocco. They will get taken away from you by the customs people. But yeah, so it was a pretty seamless process. Everybody in Morocco was really friendly, and we were able to find our way to our hotel no problem, where they looked after us and looked after our bikes all night. So welcome to North Africa, lots of excitement, and we were looking forward to the off-road trails the next day.
Mark! You initiated that. That's useful.
The plan for the first day in Morocco was to get up early, get going. We all needed insurance, tourist insurance for our vehicles, because British insurance companies don't issue a green card that covers you in Morocco any longer. So we had to go into town. In Nador, there is an AXA outlet there, basically, in Nador, called AXA. I had the address, I'd done the research. I'll pop the full address and contact details in the video description for you. But yeah, we made our way across town in Nador to this insurance place. We had some coffee, and we got that all sorted out before we're able to hit the trails and actually get moving in Morocco. You need to make sure that you're insured sufficiently.
Right, mate?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, I still had, I only put 8 litres in, so I still had 9 litres left.
Yeah. I just wanted to be double sure.
Yeah. It's always worth topping up when you can.
Well, yeah, I know the next stop's not that far, but it's definitely worth, just let's not fuck about.
The one after that isn't it?
Yeah, it's the next stop we have to fill everything up. Right. Yeah.
It's worthwhile discussing fuel stops at this point. So what I'd planned for the trip is I'd worked out roughly where we would need fuel, plus I added in some extra safety around those, so I wasn't stretching our fuel reserves completely, and we were always topping up a little bit early whenever I could find reliable fuel. I did that via a combination of Google searches, looking up petrol stations, but there was lots of fuel about in Morocco. It was only later on, when we really got into the deep Sahara, that you had to be a bit more careful. But we carried extra fuel bladders. I had my 16-litre tank on the front of my Tenere, plus I had an extra Camel ADV 5-litre rear tank fitted, which made refueling really easy for me because I wasn't topping up containers and stuff like that. I just filled my front tank, I filled my rear tank, and I was good for 350 k's plus. So I did have a 6-litre bladder with me. I only used that once throughout the trip. We did make some adjustments, and we didn't do the full planned route, which was overly ambitious. But fuel was a big discussion, and in my tank bag I had written out every town where we could get the fuel, along with the distance to the next fuel stop. So it was well planned out, well thought through, and it just takes away that concern that you might have around fuel anxiety.
Got to go around that way. Yeah, point goes around.
I'd actually plotted a route around this dam. When we got there, we found that the dam wall was closed off and there was a lot of construction work going on. So these types of things would happen several times on the trip, where you can plan it as much as you want from a satellite image and look at road maps and all that stuff. But when you actually get to the point, you have to adapt, and that's part of the adventure, part of the fun of doing that. So I very quickly realized I wasn't able to go through here. Some chaps had stepped out of the control office here. They'd obviously been having some tea or something, but they very friendly waved us through, pointed us in the right direction, and we followed the diversion. Now, that diversion ended up being a very interesting diversion, as you'll see in a second, because in Western Europe, this would be completely shut off to anybody or any vehicle. But in Africa and other parts of the world, these types of things they work differently. There's an element of, we'll make it work, and people need to use their brains and take care in what they're doing. I love this type of stuff. It's less sterile, and you get to see some interesting things, and it can still be safe. You gotta love a bit of sped up video and some squirrel talking. But this mountain pass was particularly beautiful. I got to ride up the zigzaggy pass for ages and look at the views, and there were goats and herders and trucks coming down the other way. You had to really keep your wits about you, but it was absolutely stunning. And so glad we got to do this pass before we got into our next off-road section. So this was another example of route planning, and what had happened was the map routed up to the left there, but unfortunately roadworks had begun since the last satellite images had been uploaded. So what we did was we circled around, trying to find our way back up to the trail up here. There were several off-road trails in the area, but I just wanted to make sure we could actually try and get back on this one. It wasn't possible, as you can see, that the groundworks here were quite severe. I went all the way up the little dirt track just to see how far they'd got and if I could get up the little goat track to the left here, but it was definitely a no-go. So what you have to do is you just got to use your mapping system on your bike, find an alternative, and work your way around it, which is exactly what we did. And again, as I say, it's part of the adventure, part of the fun. There's always an alternative out there, and not being too fixated on exactly following things is very important. It's just go with the flow, figure it out, and enjoy, adapting, really. It's a really fun part of mapping and routing a trail. I was the lead rider. I had done all the mapping. The other guys were pretty much following. And if we'd gone up that trail, we would have missed out on some of these views to the right here. So there's always a sunny side to every situation. You just got to stay focused on what you're there to do. That's to have a good time, enjoy yourself, and ride your bike, really. As you can see, we very quickly picked up a new trail. Didn't take much effort, and it rejoined onto the original route that I plotted, so there was no stress at the end of the day. What was fascinating along some of these trails is, obviously, this is Mark riding here next to me. He was riding, close gap riding like this because at least he stays out of my dust. He's not riding my dust, basically. And as well as the combination of us actually being on comms together at slightly slower speeds here off-road, we were able to talk to each other, and it was a right giggle. So, but the roads were, these off-road roads, they weren't just done by a laser guidance system. They had some really cool bends in them and twists. So, and they had a couple of little washouts along the way too. So it made for quite a lot of fun riding. It was nice, easy stuff to get into the off-road on the first day in Morocco. So it was super cool. And as you'll see, the trip builds into the desert, and it becomes softer sand, and it's not just a straight into the desert and the dunes. There's a build up to give the guys time to adapt, to get used to riding on the conditions and the heat and all that, which was fantastic. So it was mega cool.
Okay, right. Let's stop. Have a fag. Yeah. Oh, mate. Oh.
Look at that sign. School kids crossing.
I'm steering sometimes, but then other times it doesn't. Feels alright.
Look where we are. Insta. It's like, and somehow two kids are walking our way in the middle of bloody nowhere. Bloody, there's nothing. Look at this. This is like Namibia, and then these open desert lands in Namibia like this. Well, we've decided to camp for the night. We are in the middle of nowhere. It's about to get dark. We've just sent our GPS location via InReach satellite communication to Mikhail. He's 4x4. Not sure if he'll make it here because it's pretty remote, but yeah, it's a good spot. We've had a great day's riding. We've ridden from Nador and we're not far from Tendrara. We're between Mataka and Tendrara in the middle of the desert. Time to set up tents and chill.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one as we continue our journey deeper into the desert.